The closure of a popular World Showcase pavilion, being banished from the newest rides, fixing snacks that weren't broken in the first place. Not every Disney change is a good one. Now we're going to talk about the worst Disney World changes today and help you navigate around them so you can still have an amazing trip. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. We've seen a lot of good changes happen in Disney World recently. Free parking returned to resort guests, dates for new rides and restaurants have been announced, and we got new updates coming to Disney Genie Plus that have been a long time coming, but that doesn't overshadow the terrible changes that, sorry Disney, we just can't seem to sweep under the rug. Today we're covering all the different updates Disney has implemented and why they did what they did, despite it upsetting a good majority of their guests, and we're going to help you navigate around these issues. Can you handle the truth? Because that's exactly what we're going to uncover today, and things could get a little messy. We're going to start with getting rid of extra magic hours. Do you want to stay in the parks longer during your next visit? You're going to have to pay way more to make it happen now. After the parks reopened post-historic 2020 closures, many resort perks disappeared, including extra magic hours. Extra magic hours were when select Disney parks would stay open late or open early exclusively for people staying at Disney World-owned resort hotels and some good neighbor hotels. Now, I know you're like, AJ, you talk about this all the time. It's still happening. Well, no, it's not. It's not happening the way that it used to. You definitely can't go for as long as you used to be able to go. And some people have to pay even more money to go at this point. So, a little bit more detail. The perk was usually offered at 1 or 2 parks per day, sometimes 3, and became this great opportunity for people to experience rides with significantly shorter wait times due to the parks being less crowded. It was also a nice way to enjoy the parks in cooler temperatures than during the normal day without the blazing Orlando sun beating down. If morning extra magic hours were available, you could get into the parks an hour before they officially opened. And if evening extra magic hours were there, you could usually stay in the parks 2 hours after they'd closed for everyone else. For over a year, extra magic hours were gone completely. We missed them a lot, but Disney did put an end to this perk permanently in a way. Though extra magic hours weren't returning, a version was being introduced to the Disney property that essentially split extra magic hours in 2. Now we have early theme park entry and extended evening hours, and that's what you hear me talking about on these videos all the time. Early theme park entry is still available for all resort guests, but it's got its pros and cons. On the one hand, you can use it every single day of your trip instead of just certain days. On the other hand, your extra time has been cut short from an hour to just 30 minutes. This half hour will still get you ahead of the main crowds and in line for the most popular ride in the park, but 30 minutes goes by fast. As far as extended evening hours is concerned, it operates much like they did before. You get 1 to 2 hours of extra time in certain parks on certain days. But here's the catch. You have to be staying in a deluxe resort to use them. That means you have to be staying in one of Disney's most expensive resorts that are usually going to cost you at minimum $300, $400, $500 a night, and sometimes as much as $1,000 a night. The reason behind that decision? Purely business. Disney's been funneling a lot of money toward their deluxe resorts recently with lobby updates, room renovations, new restaurants, updated menus, and expanded Disney Vacation Club villas. They want those high-end resorts to be the most desirable, and although admittedly those resorts really are nice, those prices are not, which is why Disney has to find even more ways to sweeten the deluxe resort deal. And that's why the deluxe resorts are now the gatekeepers of the extended evening hours. If you want to stay in the parks later, but you don't really want to hand over $600 plus a night for just 2 hours of extra park time, then you could consider an after-hours event ticket. These are separately ticketed parties where you can explore Magic Kingdom or Hollywood Studios for 3 hours after the parks close. There are treats and drinks included with your ticket price, and you can still find lower wait times than usual since Disney only sells a limited number of tickets for these parties or these events. And it really is pretty dead in the parks those nights, so it could be worth it. But after-hours tickets range from $129 to $159, depending on the night, which, compared to $500 to $600 per night to stay in a deluxe resort, could be much more reasonable depending on how many people you're going to have to pay for to get to the party. You may also want to consider doing a split stay and start your trip in one of Disney's value resorts, then transfer over to a deluxe one for the last couple nights of your trip. That way you don't have to pay that extra hefty hotel price every night of your trip, just 1 or 2. If you choose this route, make sure your deluxe resort stay still aligns with when Disney's going to be offering their extended evening hours for the park you want to go to. You can find the park schedules on the Disney World events calendar on their website. All right, the next terrible change that nobody's really talking about is closing the entire Morocco Pavilion in Epcot. This one is pretty tragic, but in order to get the full impact of what I'm talking about, let me just take you inside the Morocco Pavilion so you can see what's going on. The former restaurant Marrakesh Table Service, which once served authentic Moroccan food alongside entertainment like belly dancing and live music, is closed until further notice, and it's been closed since 2020. The Tangerine Cafe, a place that used to serve Moroccan-inspired quick service eats, is now used as a food booth for rotating festivals and no longer functions just as a counter service location. And in general, there's just not a whole lot of action going on over here. Strange that the pavilion with some of the most beautiful architecture is the pavilion that many guests just pass on by. So what happened? Well, Morocco has always been the horse of a different color in terms of how it was operated in the World Showcase. When it was being built, the Kingdom of Morocco funded, designed, and oversaw the creation of the country's pavilion. Ever since, the pavilion's restaurants, stores, and exhibits have been overseen by an independent operating participant, managed by Moroccan businessmen who also run Paradiso 37 in Disney Springs and the Henna Cart in Disney's Animal Kingdom. Of course, COVID was a big part of the initial shutdowns for not just this pavilion, but all of them. So there for a while, Morocco was practically a ghost town. No snacks, no shopping, no meet and greet opportunities, nothing. But as the other pavilions slowly but surely started to return to their former glory, Morocco remained pretty stagnant. By the end of 2020, a joint statement released by Jackie Waller, the Vice President of Communications for Walt Disney World Resort, alongside the businessmen who ran the Morocco Pavilion, stated that ownership of the Morocco Pavilion was going to be transferred from the independent contractors and over to Disney, while the independent operators continued to navigate through a time of financial difficulty. Since that time, we have seen some sections of Morocco reopen, like the Spice Road Table Restaurant, the Juice Bar, the Gifts of Morocco store, but those two heavy-hitter restaurants that pulled in major crowds continue to be shells of their former selves. However, the space occupied by Restaurant Marrakesh has been used for the past couple food and wine festivals as the Florida Blue Medicare Lounge. If you applied for a free Medicare guest pass on the My Disney Experience app, you could enter into this hideaway and enjoy free refreshments, henna art, and all-around chill vibes as a nice breakaway from your Disney day. We'll keep you updated on the status of these two restaurants and if they'll ever be returned to their former glory, but for now, I recommend going inside this pavilion during your next visit. Not only is it peaceful, but the design work is absolutely stunning and definitely deserves your appreciation. Our next terrible change and why it happened is making new rides a gamble. Gone are the days you could guarantee a ride on one of Disney's newest rides. It used to be you could just get in line, and even if it took you 4 hours, you'd still get to ride. It wasn't ideal, but if you were totally cool paying for a park ticket just to stand in line all day long for a brand new attraction, you could make that choice. But when Rise of the Resistance opened in Hollywood Studios back in 2019, Disney knew they were going to have to manage those crowds. Otherwise, this ride was going to be way overwhelmed. It still gets way overwhelmed on the daily with all its frequent shutdowns, but I won't get into that right now. So Disney introduced a new system that would help manage those opening day crowds. Virtual queues became a tool available through the My Disney Experience app and allowed guests to reserve a space in line for the newest park attraction. This space is referred to as a boarding pass for use within an assigned boarding group. That means if you get into a virtual queue, you don't have to wait in a physical line anymore. You can go about your Disney day exploring other parts of the park, and once you get a text notification that it's your group's time to ride, you just head back over to the new attraction and walk right on. Simple, right? In theory, yes, but in practice, it can be devastating. You see, if a ride is using a virtual queue, that means there's no traditional standby line available. It's virtual queue or bust. And unfortunately, virtual queues book up within seconds of being released each day. So if you wind up missing your window of opportunity, then you're not going to be able to ride. Even with all the begging, pleading, and crying in the world, even if you booked a trip to Disney World just for this. I can't tell you how many angry guests I saw when Rise of the Resistance first opened, and they realized that they were not going to be able to ride that ride at all during their trip. So let's go over how you can manage to get on these brand new attractions via the virtual queue. You can wake up early and try to enter the virtual queue at 7 a.m. You can try your luck again if you missed that first time around and attempt to enter the virtual queue at 1 p.m., but you must be in the park that contains said ride during this drop time. Or you can up your chances by staying at a Disney hotel. Oh, here we go again. It's true. Disney gives the upper hand to its guests who are, to be quite frank, willing to pay more. If you're staying at a deluxe resort and you're planning on using the extended evening hours for more time in the park featuring the new ride, then you'll have a third chance of getting into a virtual queue around 6 p.m. And this drop time's more of a guarantee than the other two because there are fewer people trying to get those spots. This at least has been the case with Epcot's Cosmic Rewind that opened last year, so we expect a similar setup for when Tron Lightcycle Run finally opens on April 4th in Magic Kingdom. If you want to skip over the virtual queues entirely and just pay for an individual lightning lane per person per single ride-through, you can do that too. Individual lightning lanes drop daily at 7 a.m. for Disney hotel guests only. Once again, gotta be staying in a hotel. For all other guests, you won't be able to pay for individual lightning lanes until the parks open. Unfortunately, by the time the parks open, those individual lightning lanes for the brand new rides will probably have been all bought up by resort guests hours ago, which is what we saw happen for Cosmic Rewind. Once again, the advantage here all depends on whether you're funneling more money into staying inside the Disney bubble or not. Virtual queues can be overwhelming, but we do have a full guide on our DFB website for how to approach them and master them before your upcoming trip. It's step by step and will give you the best possible chance of getting into one of those virtual queues. I'll go ahead and link it down in the description below. In summary, I like the idea of virtual queues and not having to spend all day long in a physical line just to ride a minute-long experience. But it's crummy for those who go to the parks expecting to ride the newest attractions and who are let down by a system where the odds are stacked against them. If guests aren't willing to throw more money at the problem, they really may not be able to ride. That's why I'm glad you're here, you're watching this video, you're with us, because you get all the tips and tricks and get to line up that success before you even step foot in Disney World. All right, the next terrible change that we've been kind of muddling through here at Disney Food Blog for a while is a big dining change. Now, bigger isn't always better, and Disney World's proven that recently. Lately, Disney's been big on prefix menus for some of their nicer restaurants. Basically, a prefix menu is usually made of a multi-course meal, traditionally an appetizer, entree, and dessert, sold at one fixed price. You can typically choose between a variety of options in each course when you're ordering off a prefix menu, and sometimes you can't. You can find prefix menu options at restaurants like Sebastian's Bistro, Space 220, California Grill, Be Our Guest Restaurant, Cinderella's Royal Table, and Chefs de France, just to name a few. Now, if you're someone who likes to order multiple courses per meal, then this won't be too much of an issue for you. In fact, bundling appetizers, entrees, and desserts all in one price could end up saving you money if you choose higher quality items, kind of the Disney dining plan mindset there. However, if you're someone who likes to split one appetizer with the table or order a main entree only or skip out on dessert entirely, then prefix menus are going to force you to pay for more food than you actually want. So why is Disney obsessed with prefix menus right now? Because they didn't have many of them before the pandemic closures. Well, first off, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, this strategy is going to make them more money, because if you really are someone who normally only pays for a single entree, you're going to be trapped into paying for more food, whether you finish it or not. Secondly, a prefix menu operates very similarly to what the old Disney dining plan could provide. The Disney dining plan used to let you pre-purchase all or most of your Disney dining ahead of time, so you didn't have to worry about paying for meals once you were already at the park. But since 2020, the Disney dining plan has been non-existent. Prefix menus are a lot like the dining plan in the way that they allow guests to pay a set amount for their meal without having to worry about individual costs for separate items. And lastly, prefix menus became very useful for chefs and restaurants during COVID pandemic times when chefs needed to follow social distancing guidelines. Not only did it allow for each chef to be working on one individual thing without getting in someone else's personal bubble, but it also helped them stick to a set number of dishes to prep in their kitchens. Disney can probably estimate how many filet mignons are going to be ordered per hour, how many chicken dishes are going to be ordered per hour, how many slices of cake will be ordered per hour, and so on, which became a super useful tactic when food shortages were running rampant. But despite all the reasoning behind the prefix menus, a forced menu with set prices for restaurants that used to provide a lot more flexibility and choice usually turns out badly for the consumer. The biggest examples for restaurants that used to provide way more affordable price points before going prefix are the Be Our Guest Restaurant in Magic Kingdom and California Grill in Disney's Contemporary Resort. Be Our Guest actually started out as a quick service restaurant for lunch and a table service for dinner. And California Grill has always been pricey, but you could just knock down said price by choosing to order a light appetizer or dessert, which would still give you access to the resort's private balcony to watch the Magic Kingdom fireworks. By the way, if you ever did that, I hope you didn't take your table for too long and you tipped your server as though you had purchased a whole meal. That's what we always recommend. But that was another big problem for Disney and could be considered the fourth reason why prix fixe menus were put in place for those highly themed restaurants. Lots of guests wanted to experience the atmosphere of the restaurant, but weren't necessarily interested in dining there flat out, so they'd make reservations for Be Our Guest and get seated in the West Wing and go around and take pictures and then just order a couple of desserts for the table. It all comes back to money. Now, if guests really want to take advantage of the atmosphere and theming of a restaurant, they're going to have to pay the price to experience it. Fortunately, there are still several table service restaurants on property that don't use prix fixe menus, and a few of our favorites that still take the a la carte approach even now. These include Chef Art Smith's Homecoming at Disney Springs, Steakhouse 71 at Disney's Contemporary Resort, Skipper Canteen in Magic Kingdom, Le Cellier Steakhouse in Epcot, Hollywood Brown Derby at Disney's Hollywood Studios, Yak and Yeti at Animal Kingdom, and that's only the tip of the iceberg. To learn about so many more, you can always stick with us. We'll give you tips, reviews, and recommendations through our website posts, social media platforms, guidebooks on dfbstore.com, and of course here on DFB Guide, our YouTube channel. I don't know if you know this, but we're pretty keen on all things Disney food. So stick with us and we'll let you know if other changes happen and sort of how to navigate those changes as needed so that you're not spending more money than you have to. Next on our list of terrible new changes is discontinuing the well-loved Streetmosphere. I'm a big fan of Streetmosphere. Not sure what that is? Well, you get to enjoy a live performance without having to wait in line or worry about lightning lanes or stress about getting the perfect view. You just get to enjoy a show out there in the open in the middle of the park. And that's why I always ache when I hear about any kind of Streetmosphere being discontinued. But I think I doubly ached when I heard the Citizens of Hollywood and Citizens of Main Street would be going away until further notice, and are still gone. The Citizens of Hollywood could once be found on the streets of Hollywood and Sunset Boulevard and Hollywood Studios. Wow, that was a lot of me saying Hollywood in one sentence. This group is made up of starlets, gossip columnists, reporters, policemen, and cabbies, all based around the glitz, glamour, and desperation of becoming a star in Hollywood around the early 30s and 40s. They were hilarious and so much fun to interact with. They added another layer of immersiveness once you stepped into this Hollywood-themed park. As for the Citizens of Main Street, does anyone remember that old "I'm walking right down the middle of Main Street, USA" song? Yeah, that was the Citizens of Main Street's theme as they sang, danced, and performed for guests in Magic Kingdom. Back in 2020, many of these performers were laid off, and we haven't seen the Citizens back since. Well, that's not entirely true. We did see the Citizens of Hollywood surprisingly show up in early 2022 during the Walt Disney World Marathon weekend. And we saw them at the studios doing their thing and cheering on runners, and our hearts swelled with hope that this was the start of their full comeback. But unfortunately, since then, we still haven't heard a word about when or if these entertainers will return. But that doesn't mean you're not going to find Streetmosphere in the parks today. Magic Kingdom still has the Dapper Dans serenading guests on Main Street USA in an a cappella barbershop quartet performance that stood the test of time. Epcot still has the Jammers, a custodial group who uses found instruments like trash cans and brooms to put on a show. And Disney's Animal Kingdom has Kora Tinga Tinga, a cast member who uses a stringed West African instrument similar to the harp to provide upbeat vibes around the Harambe area throughout the day. Many Streetmosphere performances and showtimes are listed on the My Disney Experience app. Just head to the tip board and look under attractions and shows. And keep your eyes peeled for any random Streetmosphere that may pop up during your visit, because you might just stumble upon a show that you weren't expecting to see. Next, yes, the infamous Park Pass reservation system. Can't forget about you now. Park Pass reservations were originally put in place as part of the new safety measures to limit guest capacity in order to promote physical distancing when Disney World reopened in 2020. The Park Pass system lets guests with valid theme park admission make reservations to save their spot in the park that they want to visit each day. Regardless of whether you've purchased a ticket or not, if you don't have a Park Pass reservation, you're not getting in the parks. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, that social distancing is no longer a big thing. So why is it that we're still having to reserve our spot in the parks? Well, now it's all a matter of control. Disney's learned that by having guests make park reservations ahead of time, they can get a good idea of how many cast members to put on the schedule, how much food they need to have prepped and ready, and if needed, when to cap off the parks for some guests, aka pass holders, in order to let others in, aka one-day visitors who have the potential to spend more money. This is a whole controversy that I get more in-depth with on our Truth About Annual Passes video, so make sure to check that out if you want to be filled in on all that scandalous scoop that was just reiterated in the earnings call literally today, as I'm recording this, by Bob Iger. In short, it's all one big puppeteering act with Disney pulling the strings. That being said, there have been a couple of recent park pass adjustments, so there may be a light at the end of the tunnel. First off, when you purchase a one-day ticket for a specific date and theme park, a park pass reservation is now made automatically at the time of purchase. If you choose any other type of theme park admission, such as a park hopper or a 2 or more day park ticket, you'll still need to follow the procedures for making park pass reservations. Secondly, Disney announced that annual pass holders will soon be able to enter the parks after 2 p.m. without a park pass reservation. However, there will be some exceptions. Pass holders will still need to schedule reservations for Saturdays and Sundays in Magic Kingdom, since those are going to be Magic Kingdom's most packed out days, especially once April rolls around. Hello, Tron. And once we know more about when the date this change will officially take effect is announced, we'll let you know ASAP. Now, park hopping used to be a pretty straightforward system. You purchase a park hopper add-on to your ticket, and there you go. You can jump around all 4 parks all willy-nilly all day long. But because park pass reservations became a big deal post-closure, that impacted the way we navigate park hopping as well. Disney didn't want guests potentially making reservations for one open park, only to automatically jump over to a park that was already blocked off and at maximum capacity. So as of January 1st, 2021, the 2 p.m. rule for park hoppers was put in place and has remained so ever since. Now, guests can't park hop until after 2 p.m., meaning you must head over to the park that you made your reservation for first. Fortunately, once 2 p.m. rolls around, you've pretty much got the freedom to go wherever as long as you already scanned into your first park. Since you do not need a park pass reservation for the parks that you end up hopping over to, you're good to go anywhere else after that. But there have been times that I've not gotten to my first park until after 2 p.m., but I still had to scan into that first park to hop someplace else. Now, this extra feature can be extremely useful for those who only have limited time in the parks, but it does take away a lot of the vagabond spirit that the old park hoppers used to carry, and you definitely don't have as much flexibility as you used to either. All right, next, let's talk about the fallout of all of these changes, the construction, the walls, the pardon our pixie dust. Disney updates are fantastic. We want to bring on the new restaurants, the refreshed resort themes, the expanded park areas. But sometimes I feel that when I'm walking around Disney property, I see construction everywhere I turn. Since everything came to a screeching halt during COVID, it feels like regular construction annoyances are doubled, since Disney's basically having to work on essentially 2 sets of projects at once. For example, if you're over at Disney's Polynesian Village Resort and you want to walk over to Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa, or vice versa, you're going to have to walk on the street between the 2 deluxe hotels. That's because the DVC construction going up at Polynesian, which is going to bring a whole new DVC building to the resort by late 2024, is currently blocking off the usual, less sketchy walkway. And what other construction's currently going on? Glad you asked. Tomorrowland Light and Power Company in Magic Kingdom has been closed so Disney can give it a bit of a refresh while Tron is being built. Splash Mountain has officially closed in Frontierland, and Tiana's Bayou Adventure is under construction. Things are looking chaotic as always over in the middle of Epcot right now. Lots of construction continues to take place as the park is working on Communicore Hall and Plaza, which will centralize the Epcot festivals, and Journey of Water inspired by Moana, which is going to be a walkthrough attraction through immersive living water. These areas are slated to open later this year, but it's still a mess there. If you see it from the monorail, it's just a mess in there. Now, Hollywood Studios has been putting some finishing touches and accents on the exterior of Roundup Rodeo Barbecue, which will be opening on March 23rd. The Summer House on the Lake table service restaurant is set to open sometime this year in Disney Springs, so expect to see a lot of construction near the Salt and Straw ice cream parlor. And Disney's Boardwalk Inn and Grand Floridian are both working to update the theming of their hotel rooms and lounge areas. Boardwalk is also getting ready to welcome a new table service restaurant, the Cake Bake Shop, which is slated to open later this year. So that means the ESPN Club has been completely gutted. For more info on the Cake Bake Shop, check out our interview we had with owner Gwendolyn Rogers. We'll link it down in the description. At the end of the day, I know Disney's doing their best to expand and make new exciting things for us to check out on future vacations, but that doesn't mean it's not slightly disappointing to step into the Disney bubble now and be greeted by a whole lot of cranes and dirt and construction walls. Okay, this next one is a little personal. It's a little niche. It's, I don't know if you're going to care as much about it as I do, but I'm going to put it in here anyway. I love seeing new food options available in the Disney restaurants, but sometimes those changes mean sacrificing food that used to be on the menu. And when the new option dulls in comparison to what I'm used to, disappointment abounds. Take the peanut butter pie, for example, over at the Contempo Cafe in Disney's Contemporary Resort. Was anything inherently wrong with that delicious mound of cream cheese peanut butter goodness that was once the peanut butter pie I knew and loved and told you guys about all the time? No, there was nothing wrong with it. Did Disney have to replace said pie with a 50th anniversary themed one that had way less peanut butter and more banana? No. Did they do it anyways? Yes, and I'm clearly still bitter about it. But the big example I want to cover today is the travesty that happened over at one of my favorite places on property, the Territory Lounge in Disney's Wilderness Lodge. Back in ye old days when everything was right with the world, I would come here and order the stellar options like the Oregon Chardonnay Fondue, the ahi tuna tataki rice, the poutine, and those cobblers that rotated out regularly, depending on what berries were in season. Now, I always recommended Territory Lounge. I thought it was a great place to go for a quick dinner. It has a relaxed vibe, it's never too crowded, but Territory Lounge received a big menu overhaul this past October. Now you can find items like the Territory Popcorn Sampler. Why would I want to pay a bunch of money for just a couple of differently flavored popcorns? There's a loaded baked potato flatbread, which is very good. There's bacon on the wire with candied bacon and deviled eggs. Again, why does everybody need to hang their bacon these days? And roasted bone marrow with honey baked brie. Are these options bad? No. I mean, except for making me spend a bunch of money for just some popcorn. But did they make this place better? Absolutely not. I still love Territory Lounge and its laid-back, rustic environment, and I also love that you can still get the mushroom bisque there, which, heads up, it's not on the menu, but they do have it back there. You can order it, and they're cool with it, because I just did it a couple weeks ago. But I'm gonna miss the fondue and the cobblers terribly. This new menu is just not the same. But it's not fair to just point fingers at Territory Lounge. Menus change up at every Disney restaurant at some point in time, and usually quite a bit. Sometimes it's just replacing one snack with another. Sometimes it's just rotating out limited time treats, and sometimes it's a big old menu overhaul, similar to what we saw at Territory Lounge. And not every change is going to be a bad one. In fact, several of you out there might be thinking that those new Territory Lounge snacks sound pretty good, and that's why Disney changes things up, to keep everything fresh. Sometimes menu changes do the restaurant a huge favor, like when we discovered Tony's garlic bread for the table at Tony's Town Square in Magic Kingdom, which included toasted ciabatta with roasted garlic butter and Parmesan fondue. Usually we're going to pick anywhere but Tony's Town Square to dine in Magic Kingdom, but this new option, along with several other new choices at the restaurant, gave us pause. This place may not be our favorite still, but give me some warm, crispy, cheesy garlic bread any day of the week and I'll be your best friend forever. If you want to know about the latest menu updates hitting the Disney World restaurants weekly, we know about those and we let you know about those. Check out the DFB website because we do a post every week letting you know all the menu changes, literally every single one, the additions, the price changes, whatever else we happen to find. So don't be a stranger over there on DisneyFoodblog.com. Now, if you've made it this far in this video, you've probably been waiting for this one, and this is making free services no longer free. These Disney changes aren't necessarily new, but they hurt like a fresh wound every time, especially when I think back on what these Disney services used to be like. And by that, I mean free. They used to be free. The two big ones I'm talking about that you probably could have already guessed yourself if you keep up with all things Disney drama like we do, are the long-gone FastPass Plus and Disney's Magical Express. So they're relatively new. I mean, in the past couple years. FastPass used to be a free service that allowed you to pick 3 rides to start off with that you could bypass the main queues for. And Disney's Magical Express was the free transportation option that could get you from the Orlando International Airport to your hotel and back again by the end of your trip. Now, lots of folks are going to blame the pandemic for these changes, but really, Disney had been planning to get rid of these before COVID was a thing. The Disney Genie planning tool found on the My Disney Experience app was originally announced during the 2019 D23 convention. We vaguely knew it was going to be a tool that could help you plan your Disney day, but we weren't aware yet that the main purpose of this was going to be its premium Lightning Lane features, which would go on to replace poor old FastPass. The shutdown actually worked in Disney's favor for this one. It allowed Disney to quietly take away FastPass while we were all distracted with every other change happening in the parks. Then, after a year of silence, we were introduced to Genie Plus and its Lightning Lanes, and many guests were not happy about this, not one little bit. Unlike FastPass, Disney's Magical Express didn't just disappear like a vapor in the wind during the pandemic. Instead, it was fully operational as soon as the resorts started to open back up in July 2020, with many modified features to help promote social distancing and all-around guest cast member safety. It wasn't until 2021 when we learned the Magical Express would be driving its last load of guests on the last day of the year, completely going into retirement on January 1st, 2022. What replaced it was the Mears Connect and Sunshine Flyer shuttle systems, which essentially accomplished what the Magical Express did, but now you get to pay for it. A standard round trip on the Mears Connect costs $32 per adult, while a standard round trip on Sunshine Flyer is $39 per adult. During this adjustment period, guests have had their grievances with both Lightning Lanes and the Mears Sunshine Flyer services, but each of these options have been working to provide more convenience for guests. Recently, Disney announced that within the next few months, not only will a Genie Plus purchase give you access to Lightning Lanes, but it'll also get you free digital PhotoPass downloads for attraction photos taken on the day of your purchase. That means you can get photos from Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, Haunted Mansion, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Pirates of the Caribbean, Space Mountain, Dinosaur, Expedition Everest, Rock and Roller Coaster starring Aerosmith, Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, Slinky Dog Dash, Frozen Ever After, Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind, and Test Track. And probably Tron at this point. And as far as the Mears Connect, the shuttle service is trying to keep things pretty familiar so you don't feel like you're paying for less Disney magic. You'll even get to see the Welcome to Disney bus video that plays before your trip that many folks worried would go away with the Magical Express. Once you book your MCO flight, you can make a reservation for either of the new motor coach services by going to their websites. And if you're interested in adding Genie Plus onto your Disney day, you'll be able to do so starting at midnight the day of your visit. Yep, these services still provide essentially what we were familiar with before, and sure, Disney keeps working to add more unique and clever offerings to said services to try to get us to pay no attention to the man behind the curtain asking you to turn out your pockets, but it's still the idea that we now have to pay for these benefits that were once complimentary that keeps guests riled up. And speaking of, we can't forget about the big change here that's got thousands of guests ticked off, and that's the price hikes, or more specifically, the price surges. Surge pricing is something you're going to be familiar with even outside of the Disney bubble. You see it happen with gas prices, flights, hotel rooms, prices for things that fluctuate day by day depending on outside circumstances, more specifically based on demand. And Disney is a surge price pro. At this point, they've been using this fluctuating price system for years when it comes to their theme park tickets and hotel rooms. But this past December, Disney decided to add even more surge pricing to the equation, forcing guests to change the way they think about budgeting for a Disney trip. Park-specific pricing was introduced December 8th, 2022 for one-day, one-park tickets. Remember the tickets I mentioned earlier, the ones that automatically add Park Pass reservations so you don't have to worry about making them yourself? Those are the same tickets we're talking about here, because the exchange for that no Park Pass reservation needed perk is that the cost of your ticket is going to vary depending on what park you want to visit on any given day. And that means a day in Magic Kingdom will probably cost you more than a day in Animal Kingdom, for example. Along with park-specific ticket pricing, Disney also introduced surge pricing for Park Hopper and Park Hopper Plus add-ons. Before, Park Hoppers cost $65 per ticket, while Park Hopper Plus cost $85. Now, these are merely the starting prices for these add-ons. Both Park Hopper types could jump up in price during busier times of the year, like around the holidays, extended weekends, or big Disney events. But that's not the end, folks. Surge pricing was also introduced to Disney Genie Plus. Now, I know we already talked about Genie Plus and Lightning Lanes in the point before this, but all the little parts of this system can be overwhelming if you're not familiar with it. So I highly suggest checking out our Disney Genie, Genie Plus, Lightning Lanes catch-all page on the DFB website for a more detailed look at all of the different offerings, the updates, how the surge pricing works, and tips and tricks for this service. For now, just keep in mind that Genie has 2 different premium offerings. Individual Lightning Lanes, that's the pay-per-ride portion of this service where you'll pay a fee to use the Lightning Lane for one in-demand attraction, much like we talked about earlier when discussing an alternative solution for the virtual queues. Now, individual Lightning Lanes have always been based at a surge price, so here's a quick price guide of all the individual Lightning Lanes currently available, what you can expect to pay on any given day. Now, on the flip side, the Genie Plus portion of this premium service, which allows you to bypass standby lines at over 40 attractions in Disney World, was originally introduced with the base price of $15 per person per day. But yet again, Disney flipped the script on us recently and made $15 the minimum price you can expect to pay for Lightning Lane access on any given day. During busier times of the year now, we've seen Genie Plus prices spike as high as $29 per day per person, meaning a family of 4 would have to pay $116 on top of their ticket and everything else they're paying for that day to get that access to the Lightning Lanes. Now, those surge prices for Genie Plus are going to change on the daily. You can still get an idea for what the different prices are going to look like for tickets and Park Hopper add-ons well before your trip. Just check out the price ticket calendar on the Disney World website. It'll be right there at your disposal on the same page that you'll go to when you want to make those ticket purchases in the first place. Looking at ticket prices ahead of time is a great way to also predetermine what Lightning Lane prices are going to look like ahead of time too. If tickets are priced higher than usual, more than likely Genie Plus and individual Lightning Lanes and hotels will be too. And if they're lower, same rules apply. There is a major catch to that thought process though, because higher priced tickets mean higher demand, and higher demand means busier park days. And what would be super useful to have on busier park days? You guessed it, Lightning Lanes. See, like I told you, Disney is a pro at the surge price game. It's just going to take a little research on your end to figure out what additional Disney perks you're going to want to purchase to pull off a successful trip for your group, as well as if you can adjust your vacation time frame to line up with those cheaper travel times, like around August and September, or maybe even some of the random days in the middle of the summer, if you go during the weekdays and not the weekends. Also remember that if you want Lightning Lanes, you don't have to get them every day of your visit. Pick and choose when you think you'll need them most and save your money on those other days. We tend to gravitate toward using Genie Plus and Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios, since those parks have the most in-demand rides. And copy and paste that idea for Park Hoppers too. You don't have to have Park Hoppers unless you think they're going to be useful for covering more ground for a shorter trip. So again, discuss these additional purchases with your group, find out what's going to work best for everybody. And if you're traveling with your family, know that these extra purchases do add up, so make sure the budget accommodates them. Okay, I think we've thrown Disney under the bus enough now. And at the end of the day, we're still going to these parks every day, but we know they're not perfect. This is a company that's constantly working on finding new ways to make money, and they update park experiences to keep things enticing and figure out what their next steps are going to be. But as Disney continues to change, we'll continue to be here, keeping you in the loop, helping you plan out the best Disney vacation possible, changes and all. That's our job. We make a lot of mistakes when we're in Disney World so that we can tell you about them and you don't have to make them. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.